Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today's video is titled Immigration, Fuck Around and Find Out. So let's just get into it. Um, I think immigration is the most conflated issue that we really have today. And I'm gonna start off just like some personal admission that like I think I was misinformed a lot about immigration in terms of the advocacy and the allies in that group. You know what I'm saying? Like I was falsely, given the illusion that like immigration was probably like the largest issues that Hispanic Americans cared about. And I clearly see from this year's election of Donald Trump that is unbelievably not true. Um, to me, it was like kind of disturbing that from a couple of years ago, you know what I'm saying, in two other election cycles, Hispanic Americans were like a 70% group for Democrats. And in just two election cycles, they're down to a 55% group for Democrats, with men actually going a majority for Republicans. So to me, of every ethnic group, because if you look at every election, no other group has had the largest change. Black people are right around the same, between 85 and 95% for Democrats. Asians are relatively same, between 65 and 75% for Democrats. White people are relatively the same, between 35 and 50% for Democrats. Latinos went from 70 to 55. So if you're just following statistics, it's like what has led to this? And for me, I was just like, where are the dreamers at? Where are the dreamers at? Right? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm a man of a certain age. I remember, like, the Gang of Eight, maybe about 12 years ago, there was a really consolidated effort that was a bipartisan effort to try and help these dreamers out, which were basically, in short, illegal, undocumented immigrants, but they were here. They were like the children of undocumented immigrants who were born maybe in the other country and then came here and migrated illegally, and now they've known another life. Like they know nothing else of being an American citizen. Some of them didn't even know that they were undocumented until they tried to apply for jobs or colleges. And there was a whole big movement to try and like, hey, these people, there are millions of these kids here, like let's protect them, like let's do it. And for me, being a black man, that's not necessarily my issue, but like in the effort of consolidation and solidarity and all those things, in recognizing like injustices against all people of color, I'm like, all right, let me champion this issue too. um and during this election cycle, I heard nothing. I literally heard zero from this dreamer group. You know what I'm saying? At all. All while Trump was literally running on mass deportations of all undocumented citizens, which includes this group. Um, so like I guess I was a little disappointed, or like both disappointed and also surprised that I really didn't see any advocacy groups, no mention of the Dreamers at all, considering that was like the large basis for why we were going to have immigration in the first place. And to now see that like they're just completely absent from the conversation, and that in fact the Hispanic vote did flip basically 15 points within that same time frame too. So it means it to me, it's like, okay, well maybe they also don't care about it. Um, but I digress on that one. So, but with immigration in itself, the F around and find out situation is like what is actually going to happen. Like what Trump never does is say specifics on policy. Ever. He's like, he just says all these grand things I think people think sound good, but never really has a plan to do it. Like the wall, right? He said he was going to build the wall. Mexico was going to pay for it. No one holds him accountable for the fact that that never happened. Like we can go to the border right now and see that there really isn't a wall, but yet because the man can't admit that he's wrong, he will, and people somehow think the emperor has new clothes. They allow him to still think that he somehow has a win for that. And I think that's exactly the same thing that's going to happen with this immigration issue. But I digress, because most people don't even think about how much, like, how is this going to even happen? And how much is this going to cost? Like, because illegal immigrants, you have to find them, right? That's one of the largest things. You have to find them. And just in terms of how many people we deport each year. So estimates say that we deport in a regular year, maybe around 800,000 people. That's a lot. But when you're hearing Trump talk about he's going to deport 25 million people, that's a big difference, right? That's, at least 30 plus times more than what we're actually set up to do with our capacity, right? So if you're going to do something like, how much is that going to cost, right? So their estimates now, and this is like if you're going to, they rounded up to 1 million people. So if you're going to deport 1 million people today in America, the estimates are anywhere between $88 billion a year and $380 billion a year. That's a very, very light variance, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, but those are the estimates. But for the sake of argument, I am just going to use the lowball estimates, right? You know what I'm saying? Just for the sake of argument, even though the lowball is never what it usually is, correct? So let's just do this simple math in our heads of how much it's going to cost. Because, cost matters, right? I mean, I know it might feel good to just be so hateful and just kick people out the country because somehow you've scapegoated them for all your problems. But, like, how much is it going to cost to get them out? So the lowest estimate, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're going to take that $88 billion cost and put that over, and that is, again, for 1 million people. And if we're going to increase that, we're going to basically times that by 25, right? Because it's a 25 million people deportation. So that on the low ball will be $2.2 trillion. $2.2 trillion. That, I think, off the top of my head, is really close to the entire GDP for the United States every year. The entire GDP. And that's the low ball cost. How much do you think it's going to impact you as a person that allegedly is concerned about the cost of eggs if our whole gross domestic product that we use to pay our bills is going to be used exclusively for this deportation? And what Trump has said, and he said it, go Google it, that we're going to do this no matter the cost. Because they're already baking into the cake right now that they're going to do this even if it causes Americans problems, because the point is just to get them out. It's not about like what actually makes sense for us, right? So this is going to cost us a shitload of money that we do not have in times of austerity. And the thing is, like, these people that if you're voting on this issue because you think somehow that like you're going to get more money because the United States is spending so much money on illegal immigrants. But if you look at the money they're spending, it's going to cost more for us to deport the immigrants every year than the amount of money that we give them. Can I repeat that? It's going to cost us more to deport. And that's just with what is right now. We pay more to deport illegal immigrants now than what they cost us and all these benefits that people think that they're getting. So again, if you think that deporting them is going to somehow yield more resources for you, you're wrong. And then let's just go to the other side of the equation about the labor force and the economic force that these illegals represent, because they're not just sitting on the street taking, they have jobs. That's why they're here, right? So they are contributing to the economy. They're paying taxes. Some of them are starting businesses, right? So like, what do you think will happen? What happens when you lose your undocumented nanny? What happens when you lose your undocumented lawn care services, and restaurants lose their undocumented bussers and dishwashers, and the agricultural industry loses its undocumented field workers? How do you think that will impact your pricing? Do you think all that losing cheap labor and losing labor at all is going to reduce your pricing? No. There's going to be a huge labor shortage. And if you're a business, that means your labor cost is going to skyrocket. It's going to skyrocket. And these are the things that I don't think that people understand that are going to happen. They naturally have to happen. This isn't political. This is just a dumb moment. Like, that's why the South was so much about slavery, right? Because if you took away their free labor source, it could bankrupt their economy. Even if you replace that with a cheap labor source, right? And it did for decades, generations. You know what I'm saying? The South is still, in essence, trying to recover today, which is part of the reason why you have all this drama right now. You know what I'm saying? But F around and find out. And on a social level, Let's not even talk. I was just speaking about the pure economics for the folks. Let's not talk about the fucking cruelty of it all, right? How the person, I forget what his name is, but the person that he is putting in charge as the immigration czar literally said, like, in a question about like how are you going to address like the breaking up of families? You know what I'm saying? Is there a way that you can do this immigration without breaking up families? He's like, sure, deport them all. They're telling you what is going to happen. It's going to be indiscriminate. It's going to be racial profiling. It happens now. Again, there are people that I said earlier, they're deported and illegally detained here in America today. And why? Because they look a certain way. And y'all gonna F around and find out. I really feel for y'all, my Hispanic brothers and sisters. You know what I'm saying? It's like all it's gonna take is somebody saying, like, ooh, I think there's some illegals living in that house. ICE gonna raise your shit. You're gonna be walking down the street and stop and frisk because you know what? They're allowed to do that. They're gonna be like, show me your papers. Fuck around and find out. I feel like black people in this country know more than anyone what this deal is. That's why we vote on the right side of history of all this stuff. We know no matter what they say, oh, we're just going to come after the criminals. Oh, we're just going to do it. Never happens. Never happens. So many innocents get swept up, and you know what? They don't care. They won't care. Because you know who's not going to get swept up in the raids? White people. They're the only group in this country that won't get swept up. Right? Because they're not looking for them. 97% of all deportations and illegal holdings happened to Latin American countries. 97%. So this is targeted. Fuck around and find out. Maybe the tent will still be here when y'all ready to come back. Until next time.